Hello to you, my fellow Dark Ones, under semi-dire circumstances. I ran out of bolts. Okay, the problem seems to have been fixed. And yeah, that is a tier 6 rocket schematic. Steadfast drone. Why not? Actually, I'm not gonna go through the maze, we just dig up. Yeah, much better. So we're on one of the moons of my 7th favorite planet in the solar system. You know, Saturn. And yeah, I was just digging around, minding my own business, and I found a dungeon. Over on this moon, we're looking for something very important. Can you guess what it is? No, not the crystal, the snow, and the ice. So this is called Unknown Crystal Shard, and you use it in order to make stem cells. Then you're going to wait until UV age in order to make some biocells. Actually, I'm not exactly sure, but I think this has something to do with mutagen for bees. That was a meteor. It still gives you meteoric iron. Other than the snow and stone, there's not much else of interest, and I got plenty of them anyways. Also, have you noticed the flag? No. Alright guys, if you look at the top left hand corner of the screen, you might notice a few days have passed. I have been preparing a few stuff, but I'm also short on some materials, so we need to go on a small mining trip. Well, with the brand new pickaxe, all of our mining sessions are going to be short anyways. One of the things that I'm extremely short on is graphite, and the best place to find it is on Rust 128B. Veins are massive here, you can get stacks and stacks of it. Obviously, if I land one day. This is probably the 4th graphite vein that I have visited, and look how massive these things are. In the overworld and also in the Twilight Forest, they're not this big. Oh, and yeah, definitely not this dense. Also, I have a question. This is supposed to be a friendly planet? What are these things? I tried looking for them, I can't find them. I don't know, maybe it's a bat which is a boss. Weird things happen in this mod pack. My fellow Dark Ones, the small mining session that I went on turned into a massive trip. Look, all of them are full. Literally. It's crazy. I know. I also paid a very small visit to Miranda. It was a garbage moon, but I also went to Venus for enriched Naquada. So I have already changed the plan for this episode like 50 times. Let's get to work. First, we're going to need a few mobs from the Twilight Forest, including the guy that I just got. Also you. Also as much steel leaf as possible. And obviously on our way back, we're going to take care of the Urgast. I can't cheat? That's a shame. Okay, the bow works. Thank you. And also maybe the Snow Queen. And everything that we have gathered is going to go inside a centralized mob farm. Also the previous spawners that we had. And yes, I do understand the building is unfinished. I'm working on it. Bit by bit, cause I made the cube, now I have to make it not look like a cube. Obviously our mob farms are going to be powered by solar panels and I'm crafting them, but since there are going to be additional automations over here, I'm also going to make a Lapatronic supercapacitor. Hope I got the dimensions correct. You know, one of these days, we should just make a Tesla coil. Actually, screw the capacitor, let's go with the Tesla coil, it's incredibly cheap. I'll use the capacitor somewhere else. Thankfully the base of the Tesla coil is just a ferrite mixture, which we shouldn't have a problem with it. And for some reason we don't have circuit number 3. Okay. Here we have one. Nice. And I already had 1,000 ingots. Okay. Well, the Tesla coil is ready. Oh, it needs a maintenance hatch. So I was a bit wrong. It's not an easy thing to craft. Because first off, I did not notice, but the capacitor hatch has to be made inside the clean room, and I was waiting like 15 minutes for it. Also, the capacitors that we have to make require silicon rubber. We don't have silicon rubber. I mean, we don't produce it, but we got like 400 ingots or something from quest rewards, so I used those. I should have gone with silicon rubber. Would have made much more sense. And you have to hold sneak and it does not replace those. Maybe I should have changed it here. Okay, so there has been some problems. I just want to compare the TPS, not a big deal. But the machine works incredibly weird. For some reason, I can't really change the configurations on the structure hologram, so I had to make these redstone alloy primary windings or whatever. So that at least it would build the structure, and then I replaced it with my superconductors, the EV version. Secondly, the most weird thing, this is my energy hatch, right? Wherever I put it, it wasn't acceptable, except here. It does say the outer hatch, so you can even put it here or I don't know, back here or whatever, but this was the only slot which was acceptable. And thirdly, let's make sure it doesn't explode. Well, let's turn it on, running perfectly. Okay, so one of the things that we have to do is to increase its range. We're going to go to 64 blocks. that should work. I'm assuming this guy can accept IV power and supply EV power, and the way that you determine the power supplied is actually with these capacitors. So these superconductors are EV, and also we need to have some capacitor hatches with EV Tesla capacitors. I have 2 of them, and that will determine the amperage. You know, each battery is 1 amp. Then the way that everything should work is that we find an energy hatch like this one. Apparently it's a bit buggy, so let's turn it upwards and add the Tesla cover. Oop, hi. I was scared. And you have power. And we crashed. No. Oh, wow. I mean, that's probably one of the most beautiful things that I have seen in this mod pack. It's just amazing. Isn't that true, Lord Derfel? Yes. A lot of power. Power? No. I have better plans for you. Anyways, let me try to explain to you which kind of mobs do we have. Well, obviously we have the ghast. He's a fighter ghast, so he's not supposed to be this big. He should be like 2 blocks tall. So I don't know, the animation is wrong, but I can disable it, but it's also not a really big deal. We have him for the ghast tiers because what I want to do is that later on I want to also upgrade these machines that we have over here, and we need ghast tiers in order to get chlorine. Well, salt water, then chlorine. We also had a spawner for wisps, and yes, it does have problems, but the problem with it is actually something else. Wisps require LUV power, and I have no idea why. Because if you check the recipe for any ethereal essence, it's telling you that yeah, it does come from a wisp, and it should use EV power, but for some reason it's LUV, which is very confusing for me. Then we have the crab from the Twilight Forest in order to get armor shards for my solar panels. This guy is empty, but we also have the pinch beetle from the Twilight Forest. I got him by mistake. And I made the spawner by mistake. So he's here by mistake. Ignore him. But next to the garbage guy is actually our most important person, the Snow Guardian. This is a ghost from the Snow Queen's tower, and well, he does drop important things. Mainly steel leaf. Well, he doesn't drop the actual steel leaf, but he does drop the armor, and I already got a few. That is also for the solar panel, and yes, he does drop night metal, so our crab is redundant. But then again, if I get the nightly sword or the nightly armor, I have to process it. Obviously, we have a witch, we have an enderman, we have the blaze. Redcap sapper is never a bad idea, but we also have the fire beetle from the Twilight Forest. So the most important things that he drops are blaze rods, blaze powder, and also fiery ingots, which I also need for the solar panels. Next to him we have the slime beetle, and I needed him for the congealed purple slime. Cause you know, I actually need to get some glue and some rubber from time to time, and that's the best source. Because it gives you both, but on a very positive note, he also gives you aluminium. Not that it's a big deal, but it's free aluminium, so I don't care. Another thing is that when I mentioned that I want to upgrade these machines later on, I meant right now. Currently everybody is working at high voltage, we want to upgrade them to extreme voltage. So let me take my energy converters. We don't need them ever again. We should also make sure that we don't have any high voltage energy hatches. We want to hook them up to our Tesla coil, and well, if I have a high voltage energy hatch and put the Tesla upgrade on top, then there's going to be an explosion. We don't want explosions. We just double check that they're EV. I should have made a backup. Alright guys, all the changes have been made, and thankfully there was no explosions. All in all, this is not really a bad setup, however you might notice a constant problem, ammonia. So we get 250 millibuckets per second. It's not that bad until you notice that we're out of ammonium chloride and ammonia. So life isn't great. Another very small problem is sulfuric acid, which it's rising now, but it was almost empty. It's not really a horrifying deal. The only thing which would happen is that our platinum line is going to work incredibly slowly. And obviously as well as our Naquada line. Ammonia is double important because we also use it in order to make nitric acid, which there's a tank behind that. Which I'm assuming, yeah, it's not full. We lost 12,000 buckets. So currently the way that we're getting ammonia is that, well, we do have a chemical reactor over here, which is mixing in oxygen, hydrogen and nitrogen and makes us ammonia. We have two more garbage chemical reactors over here, which are doing the same thing, a bit slower. Wow, way slower. And we are also using algae, but that's negligible. For making all of these fluids, all it comes down to is that how fast we can get oxygen, hydrogen and nitrogen. So let's try to get them a bit faster. We're going to need two chemical plants. Not the reactor, the plant. The reason that we are going to go with chemical plants is that they do have two interesting recipes. One of them is for getting methane. We can improve our production of algae biomass if we mix it with distilled water. What we're going to get is methane gas. It's decently fast and it gives you half a bucket. It can be improved by a lot. The good thing about methane is that it's a 1:4 ratio with hydrogen and it also gives you carbon, which is also incredibly fast, so we're going to do that one too. There is also another interesting recipe with algae and distilled water for making sulfuric acid. It's not incredibly fast, but this is an MV recipe. We're going to go with EV and it gives you 5 buckets. And besides, distilled water and algae is free. And if we boost our algae production, our ammonia production will also improve. I have TPV coils on auto crafting, so let's go with 54. We're missing TPV alloy. It's fine. We go with 27 for now. Okay. 20? Thank you. While that is being prepared for our algae farm, here's what we're going to do. Currently the tier of our algae farm is IV, therefore we get everything every 25 seconds. However, if we go to LUV, then the time is going to be cut in half. So that's 174 LUV machine casing. Alright guys, it has been a while later. I have upgraded the algae farms. Now they're working at LUV, so every 12.5 seconds we get a badge of algae. The reason that I'm going with LUV and not ZPM is that you also need to have a fluid input hatch for water. And that fluid hatch has to correspond with the machine casings that you have. We can't make the ZPM one yet. I have also assembled the chemical plants down here. Well, from this vantage point, it doesn't look that horrifying, but from here, I don't really like it. So maybe we should move it to the back by a teeny tiny bit. Moving the chemical plants back a few more blocks was not actually a very bad idea, because I have some storage drawers here as well. I want to store some of the garbage from my applied energistics over there so that I can empty my drives. Most of them were red, now everything is blue. So first off, let us fix a few things. I have an ender chest here, yeah? That was meant to be for UU matter. Now we will use that for algae so that it doesn't go through our system all the time. Anyways, while my dust are being exported into the drawer, let's fix the chemical plants. Sometimes when I'm using input buses, it doesn't understand the circuit, especially if you want to use two different ones. So let's use these programmed circuits. So for methane, we're going to need distilled water. We're going to need an input bus. We're going to need an output hatch for the actual methane, and that's it. Yeah, for sulfuric acid, we need two different algae. Again, distilled water as well as the output, which is going to be sulfuric acid anyways. When you are powering your entire base using solar panels, there's one thing that you would hate the most. The rain. For night times I don't actually care that much, however it started raining 7 AM. Anyways, I have also tried my best in order to fix this room. We also have a recipe for making mutandis. It's a chemical plant. It's fitting. And yeah, we are making 2 buckets of sulfuric acid every second and 2.4 buckets of methane every second. And whenever this guy is working, actually, we're getting a ton of hydrogen. Previously, this guy was just electrolyzing water for hydrogen. This is way more efficient. Although my supply of algae is not gonna last that long. But then again, it's a passive production, so I don't really mind. Oh, finally, it's nighttime. Even though I mentioned that I don't really care about the production of hydrogen, I do actually care a teeny tiny bit. I have switched the tanks. These are now quantum tanks and they have massive capacity. But eventually, for making ammonia, I'm going to run out of hydrogen. Remember, ammonia is 1 part nitrogen, 3 parts hydrogen. And since there is no better way of getting hydrogen other than electrolyzing water, at least passively, well, we have 8 electrolyzers here. And yeah, for these ones I'm using large gas turbines. Each one of them is consuming 2 millibuckets of nitrobenzene and is generating us 3,700 RF. So each one of them can handle like 4 electrolyzers. And that should keep up with hydrogen, I suppose. And don't ask about the piping, I don't know, I had something in mind. I might change it. So now our supply of hydrogen is rising a bit more rapidly. And also we're no longer short on oxygen, it's rising finally. So now let us address the main problem at hand, ammonia. Finally, I have learned how the overclocking with chemical reactor works, and it's a bit different than other machines. So if you look at this recipe, for example, for making dynamite, it takes 8 seconds at LV. If you do that inside a large chemical reactor and you move on to MV, it's not gonna be 4 seconds, it's gonna be 2 seconds. Therefore, I think if we get 2 large chemical reactors, and obviously use LUV energy hatches, that should be a decent speed for ammonia. Yeah, 4 buckets per second. Well, actually a bit faster, because we have 2 of them. So 8 buckets of ammonia per second, that's not bad. Also, I don't really want the ammonia to go inside the storage cells that we have down there, or I don't know, get wasted. So here's what we're going to do. We're gonna have a sticky card for ammonia. What? What did I do? I don't have anything on me. Wait, did it have a timer? Oh, okay, so I can remove the warp one more time. Anywho, now we are consuming hydrogen at crazy speeds and nitrogen as well. And still the tank for ammonia is empty. Okay, so the reason that the tank was empty was that I forgot to enable input from the output side. But yeah, you see? We're finally gaining ammonia. And that essentially means we're going to have a crazy amount of nitric acid, which is going to be used for the monazite line. Which maybe we're going to do that in like 2 episodes or something. It's a weird line which gives you samarium in return for crazy amounts of nitric acid. And well, until right now, I couldn't have that. In any case, please remember that we're almost using 10% of our entire power grid just to make ammonia. Well, at least 10% of the power that we're producing up here, otherwise not a big deal. However, power is not the only thing that we're consuming, we're also consuming a crazy amount of oxygen. That's the rate that it's dropping. If it's rising, it's because I'm also electrolyzing sugar a bit. The reason that we're short on oxygen and eventually we are going to be short on nitrogen is that we only have 2 centrifuges over here, which are centrifuging air. And that's the speed that we're producing oxygen and nitrogen, just double that number. So that brings us up to the next part of the plan. If you guys remember, a few episodes ago, we made this setup over here. We're making liquid air, we are centrifuging it, we get all the gases, we were making ammonia, and now the entire thing is almost redundant because we don't need that. So let's use its resources for something a bit more important. If you get 100,000 buckets of liquid air and you put it inside the distillation tower, you're going to get 78,000 buckets of nitrogen. That's a good number, and also you're going to get neon, krypton and xenon. It's mediocre amounts, but I do remember seeing a few recipes, so let's do that as well. The only problem with this amazing recipe which I just mentioned is that you need an insane amount of liquid air. Hence, we're going to have a few vacuum freezers. We're going to start with 6. All of them have this air intake hatch and they're going to work at EV. I generally think that you have to go with cryogenic freezers because they do work in parallel, but we will see. Oh, I forgot they're loud. It's been a while we used them. But yeah, every 0.7 seconds we get 1 bucket of liquid air. Is that good enough? No clue. I mean, this recipe is not to be done in like 5 minutes, it's supposed to take a few hours at least anyways. So if vacuum freezers takes 10 hours, this guy is going to take 2.5 hours. I don't think there's any way of doing that in like 10 minutes. Well, maybe there is, a bit later. Also, that was the easy part. Now we need the actual distillation tower, and that requires a very specific liquid air fluid hatch. Because you can't put 100,000 buckets inside an input hatch, you need to make this. And yeah, that is 64 input hatches, high voltage. I already have 40, I don't know, let's make 40 more, even for the future. Oops. Iron ring. So that's the input for liquid air. Now we also needed a specific output, because we're going to get 78,000 buckets of nitrogen in 1 hatch, which I think, yeah, giant output hatch. Oh, that's another 64. Okay, yeah, we need 3 maximum. A bit of time later and I have assembled the distillation tower as well, so the tank is almost 61% full. It will take a few hours anyways, not a big deal. However, in the meantime, I thought maybe we should start working on a far more important project, an autoclave. Not the single block guy, the multi-block. This guy. So it's a very important machine, and the main reason that I couldn't build it for the longest time is that, well, first off, it requires something called lithium compound. That was an LUV recipe within the alloy blast melter, and since it only accepts 1 energy hatch, well, we didn't have this for the longest time. Well, we could have made it like 4 episodes ago, but we had different priorities. Currently, oh, it's done. Nice. Is that a quest? Oh yeah, it is a quest. It does require pressure containment casing, which is actually not that expensive. It requires a ton of go to hell, which we can craft it, it's fine. So, processes 12 items per item pipe casing tier. So item pipe casing is different than pipe casing apparently. We're going to go with Quantium, which is the highest tier. Why are we going with Quantium? Well, because I smelted too many ingots. Aha, so this was a pain to assemble, but I think I finally understood how the hologram works. So in the NEI, you have to select the schematic that you want, then you copy it to your hologram projector. So yeah, I built most of this manually. This machine is incredibly important for us in order to progress. First off, there's the crystal processors, right? The mainframe is going to give us the UV circuits. However, if you look at the recipe, there is something called crystal processing unit, which has to be done inside an autoclave. Like so. Well, if you want to go with a single block machine, you need a clean room and it has to be in low gravity, so in the asteroid belt. You have to try this recipe several times so that you would get at least one raw crystal chip, then you need to hammer it down and then you put it back into the autoclave with europium or bacterial sludge or mutagen. We're actually going to go with europium. And yeah, eventually we're going to have two of them sharing this wall. Cause I think this raw crystal chip has to be done constantly, right? I could be wrong, but it's working at LUV, it has decent coils, so let's give it a test. See if we can get the chip. And our supply of exquisite emeralds is garbage, but okay, it's a 10% chance anyways. Our supply of europium is not that bad. In the questbook it does tell you that europium is a very expensive method to do this, but I think I have an idea for europium. In the monazite line, you're going to get something called europium 3 oxide dust, which as long as you have one europium dust, you can actually dupe it. It doesn't really matter. Let's give it a test. Oh, it's working. And we are going to get it. First try. I love my 10% chance. Do you know why we are getting it? Because it consumed all 15. I forgot about the parallels. Also, the speed is garbage and it's determined by these coils, so maybe we should upgrade them as well. So, did we get it? Thank you. We just need the one. Because now we can dupe it. I just want to check, so I just hammered it down manually. And can we get more? Yeah. Every time that you hammer down a chip and make it again, it grows exponentially. I like that. But as I have already mentioned, what we need to do is that we need a second set of autoclave because this one has to work constantly in order to make chips. Because one of the things that I have noticed is that you actually need that chip in order to make the other chips for higher tier of circuits. Yeah, this one as well. Anyways, on another very positive note, our distillation tower started working. Well, it finished working, but we got tons of nitrogen, tons of oxygen, and a teeny tiny bit of argon. The rest of that is not really that important. We got a bit of krypton, a bit of hydrogen. Oh yeah, that's actually correct. We consumed it. But we also got xenon. So it does work. I did some calculation. We are supposed to get it every 6 hours, but I don't think it has been 6 hours. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's also a good time to wrap up the episode. So thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed it. Till the next one. Bye bye.